'Tis the season for giving, and the Init 500's holiday gift package is the perfect present. For only $299, you'll give or receive a cozy night in a deluxe king room to enjoy in 2025, valet parking, $100 for on-site dining, and you can make it even merrier and upgrade to a suite for only $100 more. This deal is only available until December 24th, so call 208-227-0500 or visit init500.com/holiday gift package. Give joy, give luxury, give the Init 500. Today on CityCast Boise, global companies are betting big on the Treasure Valley, sparking a surge of commercial growth. These developments are bringing jobs, but they're also driving up construction costs and straining our tight housing market. We're diving into the impacts of this growth and what it means for our area's future. It's Wednesday, January 15th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Joining me today is Nick Rosenberger, growth and development reporter with the Idaho Statesman. How's it going, Nick?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Always glad to have you on. And there's been a lot of growth and development happening in the Treasure Valley lately. And I'm really curious, what is it about Boise that's attracting these big global companies and such massive commercial developments?
Yeah, so that's a great question to start off. Just kind of in a statewide level, the state has really kind of focused on making it, a pro-business kind of state, low taxes, kind of trying to incentivize businesses to come here. On a more local level here in Boise, there's one company in particular that's kind of had a really big impact on a lot of the growth and development that's happening, and that's Micron. So if you're not familiar with Micron, they build semiconductors and microchips, basically memory for computers. They've been here for almost 50 years now, and they have been expanding their headquarters, which has led to a lot of separate growth and development kind of around the city and around the region, kind of related to that.
Where is this new project being built, and what's the timeline for it?
Yeah, so Micron is building a $15 billion new microchip processing plant, or what they call as a fabrication plant or a fab, just south of Boise. So if you're driving along I-84, if you're driving south and you look to the left, you might be able to see all those giant cranes out there. And that thing will support about $1.2 billion in wages. They're hoping to build it out in the next 4 or 5 years. At least that's what they were saying last March.
And where's the funding for this coming from? Is it mostly Micron itself? Are there federal, state incentives that they're using?
Yeah, a lot of the funding comes from the Federal CHIPS Act, which President Biden signed back in 2022, which basically funneled a whole bunch of money into boosting the United States semiconductor manufacturing industry. There's kind of been a battle between a global kind of geopolitical battle between the United States and China for who's producing these semiconductors and these microchips. For the United States, it's both a security risk to have another country building these things, but it's also like an economic incentive. And so they signed this bill and funneled basically a bunch of the money into this $15 billion expansion here in Boise.
And so how would this project position Boise and specifically Micron in the global semiconductor industry?
Production of these microchips has decreased quite dramatically over the past 2 decades or so. Other countries have kind of stepped in to fill that gap. And so bringing that sort of manufacturing and industry back into the United States with a focus on Boise for Micron is really important. I think, especially as AI and other sorts of technologies really been taking off. AI is very, very resource heavy, and they need these microchips that Micron has been producing. And if you've been paying attention to any of this stuff, you see, companies like NVIDIA or Intel they're often in the news, and there's similar companies doing similar things. Micron is basically Boise's version of these companies. And so it really puts Boise and the Treasure Valley and Idaho on the map in kind of this technological race for who has power over semiconductors and how we build these things.
And how many jobs is this project expected to create? And what kind of jobs are they? Because I know sometimes when businesses come in, they're like, we're creating jobs, and it's like a part-time, not, really effective position. So what kind of roles would this project create, and how will it affect growth in the area?
Yeah, so the jobs portion has been a really big part of this whole Micron expansion. I believe during construction alone, they're supposed to have about 4,000 construction workers. And, our our state doesn't have necessarily enough construction workers to support this entire thing. So they're bringing in construction workers from Arizona and Utah and kind of the surrounding states to work on this thing. And that has kind of squeezed our construction industry here, and that's affected jobs and other projects in downtown Boise and in other places as well. But then as the fab is closer to getting finished, they also will be hiring up more and more of those, microprocessing related jobs. So engineers and programmers and that sort of thing, technicians who can maintain the systems there. And so Micron is investing heavily into education here in Boise as well, in STEM related education and kind of trying to attract more of those workers for the fab.
Nick, you mentioned that we've needed significantly more construction workers and managers and things for the job site. How many of these jobs are going to be in the community and not necessarily workers that we're bringing from other areas because this area just can't support it?
As Micron expands, as it gets bigger, it's supposed to attract or create about 15,000 jobs in the wider community as well. Those 15,000 jobs could be everything from more restaurant work to more housing to related jobs in the industry. So, for instance, there's a new company coming into Boise called Excite, and they basically build clean rooms, which is something that Micron needs. They have been expanding their efforts and building more jobs basically in that business, which is kind of adjacent to Micron.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, LifeLock's restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Nick, Micron isn't the only major company that's been having a large development in the Treasure Valley. Meta also is building a new facility just south of town, but still within the Treasure Valley. What's the latest update?
Yeah, so Meta, they're building a data center in Kuna. And that one is also a pretty big project. It's maybe not the scale that Micron is, and it won't employ as many folks going forward once the construction is wrapped. I think it's only around 100, 150 or so people full time at that one versus Micron is a couple thousand people. But still, Meta expanding here in Idaho and in the Treasure Valley it has had a quite a big impact, not only on our construction industry, but also just on our tech industry and kind of where Boise is on a map for these kind of tech related industries.
Well, and it's also had some impacts on local resources outside of labor. Does Meta have any plans for renewable energy or infrastructure improvements to support their new facility and the impact it will have on Kuna?
Yeah. So Meta is planning some pretty big investments in Kuna and in Southwest Idaho as well. They made a commitment to fund about $70 million for a new water and sewer system for the city of Kuna, which is a huge infrastructure lift for the city. Meta is also planning on using, I believe, 100% renewable energy for the data center. So they're helping out build the Pleasant Valley Solar Project, which is about halfway between Boise and Mountain Home. And I think that would be the largest solar site in Idaho Power's kind of service territory. So yes, Meta is planning some pretty big investments in the Treasure Valley, especially around power.
And going back to our labor resources, construction workers. How much are these new commercial facility building projects taking away from the labor that we would have to build like houses or apartment complexes to address our dire housing shortage?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that I've been following for the past year and a half or so. They are definitely affecting the wider construction industry. So for instance, if you take a look at the Arthur, which is that giant glass building going up in downtown Boise, that one hit some snags a while back. And, construction costs have skyrocketed as kind of the labor pool has all been focused on Micron and Meta. And so, yes, we are seeing it affect housing with labor costs going up, with construction material costs going up. Interest rates are still quite high. It's kind of a difficult market for home builders right now. Real estate folks and developers have really been feeling the crunch lately, and I don't know if that's going to abate anytime soon. I think that's probably going to be, here until, either Micron and Meta finish their projects, or we just are able to beef up our contractors and tradesmen to a much higher level.
And finally, people might be familiar with the, Micron and Meta, more familiar with those companies and the projects that they're building in this area. But there's another company that has a major development going, Eastport Logistics. Who are they and what are they developing in this area?
Yeah, so a lot of companies are trying to take advantage of this tech boom of this kind of construction boom. One of them is Eastport Logistics, which is basically a project from a international real estate firm and an investment firm, and they're basically trying to build out this really big 78-acre warehouse distribution manufacturing site over by Micron. I think it's right across I-84 from Micron. The first phase, I think, would be about 685,000 square feet of buildings across 4 different buildings, and then the second phase would add another 500,000 square feet or so, which is pretty large. That's a pretty big sized project. When they were getting into Boise, they were saying that they really wanted to take advantage of the demand that's coming in that area to support Micron's big expansion. They're going to need more logistics and that kind of industry. And we are seeing that a bit in that kind of area around Micron. We see some more apartments going up over there. We see some more houses going up over there. We see these businesses trying to take advantage of these businesses that are coming in and expanding. So like Meta or Micron. I mentioned it earlier, but Excite is one such company that's kind of trying to take advantage of that with their clean rooms. Eastport Logistics is another good example of this. And then there's a bunch of other suppliers and smaller folks that are trying to move into Boise, which is good for the overall economy as well.
And so like you said, that's a really big development. How have the surrounding neighbors responded to the news that this company's coming in and putting this huge development, kind of right in their neighborhood?
Yeah, so I do feel like that area is kind of forgotten about a little bit. There's Boise's Urban Renewal Agency, this Capital City Development Corp. They created a urban renewal district out there called Gateway East to kind of drive investment in that area and kind of build it up and kind of bring more development to the area. There is some residents out there, however, most notably the Blue Valley neighborhood, who feel like all of this is kind of affecting their neighborhood, is changing the character of their neighborhood and affecting them negatively. And they might have a point there. There's these giant industrial buildings, these giant industrial facilities coming in right next door to houses and homes, and they're not happy about that. And so they've been fighting some of these things since back in 2022, at least. But the city has kind of implied that this area is going to be industrial, and they want to build up the development out there, especially relating to stuff like Micron or other such industries.
What benefits do the developers say this project will bring to the region?
Yeah, so it is a lot of warehouse space. It's a lot of manufacturing space. it is right on I-84. And so, it's easy access to get goods out of the state or, into East Idaho or up north into North Idaho as well. It's easy access for folks. And so I think that's a main draw for this kind of stuff, and we are seeing other development as well. So if the old Boise factory outlet malls, those shops are pretty much dying. There are plans to redevelop that into a Kenworth truck sales facility, which again is related to logistics and trucking and getting goods onto the interstate and into other places. And so I think that was kind of a main driver for this location and for these folks was to take advantage of the interstate and the manufacturing that's happening over there.
And Nick, it feels like we've had companies like Micron who've, they're basically institutions in Boise, but, we're getting companies like Meta, we're getting companies like Eastport Logistics, other companies starting to come in. Do you feel like this is maybe an upswell of a trend of more industrial building, more growth from global companies, more massive commercial developments?
The city is growing, the region is growing. And so it would make sense that industry is growing along with the city. To have Micron and Meta as kind of these baseline industries for folks to move to Boise to work at, So instead of folks going to, I don't know, San Francisco to work for a semiconductor company, like adjacent company, maybe folks are considering Boise instead. And that brings higher paying jobs, brings better wages. It does have a lot of other associated negatives. So, as both your folks move in, then that maybe displaces the local residents who lived here a long time. But having these bigger industries just kind of increases the economy of Idaho, increases the economy of the Treasure Valley. And it really does kind of place it on a map. So it's interesting to watch. And I think it'll be great to see where things go in the next, 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years. I'm really interested to see what happens with Micron once they finish the fab, and same with Meta once they finish their data center.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for breaking this down and explaining some more of the details of all these construction sites we're seeing around the area.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, make sure and leave us a review so other people can find us too. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another look at what the TikTok ban would mean for local creators. You won't want to miss it.